I'm here with Cody,
I'm here with Scotty B.
and we're going to be talking about, well, technically it's probably going to go into like the pharmaceuticals and all that good stuff, but we've both had experience with ADHD. You have the H part also?
It's so I had a weird diagnosis. Because I was diagnosed so late. I was diagnosed like late high school, so around 16, 17-ish. They had trouble figuring out if it was bipolar disorder or ADHD. And I was very confused on where those two things lie. They don't know. They don't know. So basically, it was my therapist and my psychiatrist torn on that, and then my psychiatrist got the final say. So she just
Did both?
I'm not sure, really. She didn't really inform me much.
I think when we met, you were telling me you were on both medications.
So I was on antidepressants and
ADHD medication. Which two medications?
It was Prozac and...
Which is the antidepressant.
Yeah, and then Concerta, which is the ADHD.
I haven't heard of that
Not Adderall.
I haven't heard of Concerta.
Which is the popular one.
Interesting. So what was the antidepressant for if it wasn't for the bipolar?
So... it was because of why I was admitted to the Mesa Verde clinic, and
for
depression,
anger,
anxiety, and suicidal thoughts was their final verdict.
Now, okay, whoa, because this is a big deal. Did you have the suicidal thoughts before you were on the medication or after you were on the medication?
Before.
Okay.
Before. But the medication kind of just, instead of like keeping my mood, like happy or like actually me being able to experience like mood swings and shit like normal humans do, it just leveled me out. So
that's what the medication did?
That's what the medication did.
Did you feel like leveled out like zombie kind of? Or
not
leveled
like zombie,
just like...
but like my reaction to things, like it was more like I don't care.
That's what I call being zombified, where you're just like, you have no response or reaction to anything, and it's just like...
Whatever, man.
To me, that's how it felt with Ritalin, which was the ADHD medication that I was initially on. Back in the fucking late 80s and early 90s was what they prescribed. I think it was the first and only one at that time.
Yeah, probably. Like,
Ritalin.
The main two names I've always known,
Ritalin
and Adderall.
Yeah, well, Adderall's the newest one that's like, everyone uses that, whether they have ADHD or not. Like or ADD even. Like college kids and lawyers and like students and like everybody just...
They use it to focus
is about right. So it affects people differently depending on whether they have ADD, ADHD, or neither. But for anyone that doesn't, it's an extreme like stimulant and focus. But for anyone that is, at least all the people that I've talked to and myself, it always made me feel zombified, like you're talking about, where I just like I had no reaction, no energy. It like ruined everything that I did.
And like they actually went through several medications before we actually finally came upon just the two. I don't remember the names of them all, but I do remember one in particular. It was Trazodone, I believe. And that one...
Trazodone?
I think it was Trazodone.
I want to see what... And that's a what?
I don't remember which one it was for, but it just made me angry.
Trazodone?
Trazodone. Trazadone. Spelling bee champ, 8th grade.
I think you misspelled it.
Whatever, that's a pronoun. Pronouns are in spelling bees.
Oh, it's a sleeping pill.
Was it?
That's what Trazodone is.
Try Trazopam?
Trazodone... Oh, it says, is Trazodone a sleeping pill? Wait, so... Serotonin antagonist and reuptake inhibitor. So... It's used to... It's an antidepressant. It's used to treat major depressive disorder, anxiety disorders, and in addition to others, alcohol dependence. You must have been an alcoholic, man.
Yeah, obviously. 17. No, I think they were, at that point when they were giving me that drug, they were treating me for the symptoms that the other drugs before that were bringing, honestly.
That is a huge thing that happens all the fucking time is, let's give you this cocktail. Problem. Let's say ADHD, right? You have this, so you need Adderall.
Yeah.
But then you're taking Adderall 3 times a day, but you can't sleep because Adderall's a fucking amphetamine and it's keeping you up all night. And then they go, okay, let's give you some trazodone, which while it is an antidepressant, it's also a fucking sedative. So, oh no, but that's making you to where like your stomach feels fucked up and you can't eat and then you're having diarrhea. So let's give you another fucking drug.
Yeah.
And then just, I saw this when I was a kid and it basically scared the shit out of me, to be honest. My grandparents, and this is when I was super young, so now it's probably just huge, but they had a huge cabinet filled with just pills upon pills upon pills upon pills, bottles of prescriptions that they had to take every day. And most of them were to counteract the prescriptions that they had initially been prescribed. And I was like, what the fuck? And I would see my grandma take like 5, 6, 7 pills at once and then do that like 10 times a day. And I was like, dude, this is madness.
It's not right. Like, they have the single pill box for the Monday through Sunday,
they didn't
whatever.
Even have that then.
And then it came to the file cabinet.
Now it's a cabinet. Yeah,
it's monthly, 7 times a day. There you go.
And it's crazy. I'm like, what's the point in living at that point? That I like. What happens if the world turns upside down and I can't do that? And all of a sudden I'm on like, detox from these pills, and I can't get them.
Yeah,
I can't get them because society's broken down. Like, I'm fucked. Like, I'm literally just fucked. I mean, is it really worth it? Or should I just try to, like, figure out a way to maybe if I exercise right, eat healthy, hang out with the right people that inspire me and I can inspire and I feel like I teach and learn from, and if I'm, being artistically creative and have an outlet for those things, maybe I'll not feel like a piece of shit and need some pills to distract me. Maybe if I'm not working a 40-hour work week and feeling stressed about every single day of my life on whether I'm going to have enough money to pay my bills or struggle to survive, or if I can pay for my kids to go to school, maybe I would be less depressed. Who would have thought?
Boils down to the system.
But no one believes that. We're taught at a young age that and it's weird, obviously your parents are somewhat like my mom, because I don't even think she questioned it, and she was a nurse. She went to school for biology and botany, so she's not dumb. She's she knows her shit, but she didn't know enough to question, should I give an 8-year-old Ritalin?
Yeah.
She took it from the school, who took it from the doctors, who took it from the prescription companies. Yes, you should give an 8-year-old Ritalin if they can't focus in school. Dude, fucking come on, man.
They're just kids.
And I just happen to be a little different. I just happen to think differently than most people, and I'm really hyperactive. I'm a 35-year-old and I'm still very hyperactive.
Yeah.
That's just me.
Yeah, it's just who you are. It's just who I am, But it starts so young, too.
Yeah. Well, when were you first diagnosed and put on?
It was late. It was 17, 16,
See,
17.
that's still too early because you didn't get to decide.
It's still, absolutely, still too early, but it's too late to finally notice the symptoms, in my opinion. Because if you don't know if you figure out too late, then there's not much you could do to fix yourself from that. Unless you really apply yourself. But if you're waiting too late to figure out why you're feeling this way, then it might just be the end. You might just be stuck in that downward spiral, and that's kind of hard to get out of.
I see it a little bit differently. I think if you're diagnosed early and forced upon it without any conscious awareness of what that's going to bring, you can have drastically worse results than just dealing with the initial issue that you're dealing with. Like in my case, for instance, being diagnosed at 8, popped on Ritalin instantly, and for 4 years, going on and off Ritalin, on and off Tofranil, which was the second version of the Ritalin amphetamine that they give to ADHD, and I think was more specified for the H part of it, whereas people that had the ADD only still took just Ritalin and not Tofranil.
Yeah.
And so basically by the time I was 12, I was already addicted to amphetamines.
See, that's the worst thing.
Imagine what I might be a bigger, like I might be more muscular or taller or like have a better kidney function. Like I don't know. I could have like a way better system if I had waited till I was 18 and been made to like, hey, let's like, you should do some research on this and see, because like we've noticed this thing throughout your school years that like you had a lot more trouble than most people to pay attention and focus. So like you were still able to get through school, and we know that you're intelligent, so it's not like you needed remedial classes or anything, but you had trouble paying attention. It would take you longer to do reading comprehension, but you were like better in math and science. And that was the big deal, is the reading comprehension was like the thing that I didn't have patience for it. I wasn't willing to sit there and read even a paragraph, because that's too long for my 8-year-old fucking attention span.
See, schools don't have that, they don't have that individualized approach towards children. Like,
not at all.
They have some programs, the IEP or something, individual education program for like people with like ADD and stuff, but it's broad.
Nowadays.
Yeah, but it's still broad, and they're not going to take the time out of their day to sit down with the kid and, you know, figure out what's actually wrong.
Right.
They might do it once at the beginning of the school year just to figure out, hey, do we need to put them in some kind of class where...
Well, more than likely it would be a test that you would just take.
Be a test that would, the kid would have no context on what's going on.
Exactly.
Am I being graded for this? Oh no, you know.
And at what age?
Exactly. If the older it would get for the testing, I think that'd be the worst, because at that point they already know that tests are going to lead to grading.
Right.
But at kids, you're just, oh, is this a pink horse? Yes, it's a pink horse. But the more older you get, the later it's diagnosed. Like I was saying, the later the school is actually in it, it's kind of more anxious to get into, or to get through, rather.
Could be. I still think the earlier you put someone on mind-altering and body-altering drugs, the worse it is for them overall.
I don't necessarily think that being diagnosed at a young age necessarily means you're going to be forceful with drugs.
Most people, I think, are.
Most people absolutely are. But it comes down to how well educated the parents are and how willing they are to learn about this before they...
I agree completely. It is the fault of the parents.
Yeah, in most cases, it's the fault of the parents. Sometimes
that's the case,
parents aren't
no matter
there.
What.
You know, like an orphan can go through that, and
yeah, there is a lot of that.
There's a lot of stuff going on.
And
like
the state's going to automatically do whatever the school and the pharmaceutical says.
Well, exactly, because who's pumping in the most money?
See, that's crazy. I feel really fortunate, though, in a lot of ways. Like, despite, I don't feel like I was a victim of it. I feel like I got really lucky to have recognized what was happening at such a young age. Like, because I got diagnosed at 8 and medicated from 8 to 12, around like 13 when I started to do actual drugs, and then 14 actually starting to do like methamphetamines, like street fucking amphetamines, I was already recognizing kind of like the whole connection between like pharmaceuticals and the social impact of like, you know, basically like what I consider to be bullshit diagnosis from doctors.
Yeah.
Like, doctors don't know what the fuck they're talking about, man. And then by the time I was 18, I was already off of everything. I was already fucking like, I had had 10 years of amphetamine addiction of some kind.
Yeah.
And I was able to recognize that at so much of an earlier age is the only aspect of that I consider to be better than having, if I had waited, like in your case, till 17 or 18 to be diagnosed and given those pills. I don't know. I certainly wouldn't be the same person. I wouldn't have gone through my 20s the way that I did. I would have gone through my 20s zombified.
Yeah.
Is what would have happened. Most likely. I mean, I don't know because it's all speculative, but I feel like because I had that opportunity at such a young age, even though I feel like that's not what we need to be doing with our children, we need to actually teach them. Like, if I had been given the opportunity to have a patient teacher that was like, okay, you need meditation and you need structure. instead of you need medication and you need people to yell at you to shut the fuck up and calm down.
Yeah.
That I probably could have done all the same shit without medication and without the negative side effects of medication.
Yeah.
So, like, what side effects do you feel like you had?
Like before the medication or after the medication?
Definitely after. I think, okay, so I believe that before the medication, your side effects are mostly due to your inability to understand yourself. And that's not all your fault, but as an adult, that's your fault. Like, when we understand ourselves, we can recognize, okay, I need this type of exercise. Cardio, generally speaking, regularly, whether that's daily or 3 times a week or at least twice a week or something, and I need this type of diet. I need to eat these kinds of foods because when I eat Jack in the Box or a bunch of fucking pasta, I feel tired and groggy and I'm annoyed and have an attitude versus like if I eat, you know, more vegetables and fruits, but stay away from the ones that make me feel like shit. Like for me personally, I love bananas, but I cannot eat them because every time I do for the next hour, my stomach aches and I feel like shit. And then if I have to do anything, I'm more irritated and more annoyed than I would be had I not eaten a banana. Yeah. So granted, that's a small thing, but I think they all add up. They're all factors. So I need to know myself well enough by experimenting with myself. And again, I think it should come from like your parents should teach you how to experiment to learn yourself as a kid. Like, hey, we're going to do some, and they're talking, they don't just do the experiment for you and go, here, eat some oatmeal. Oh, you didn't like that? And they don't say anything the whole time. And then they're like, here, eat a banana. Oh, you like that? Okay. And they don't say anything. I'm saying like they need to be patiently explaining this shit to their kids about what's going on in their minds with these experiments because that's how you find out about yourself. And no doctor is going to be able to tell you, you need this and this and this exactly because it's different for everyone.
Subjective. Like,
it's just different for everyone. And so, like, once I started recognizing I need this specific type of shit, I need meditation, for me, is a big one because of ADHD. Without that, I can get extremely overactive and analytical. And it can turn into basically like neuroticism really quickly, which I'm already often on the verge of like being neurotic because of ADHD. But that's also like, it's not a negative thing if you learn to like incorporate it into who you are and accept it, as opposed to being like, oh, I'm neurotic and I can't get over it, so I need medication. Like, that's not the way to look at it. The way to look at it is, if I just meditate 5 minutes a day, it can severely reduce the amount of like overanalyzing my mind does, which will severely reduce the amount of neuroticism I display within myself and outside of myself. If I just do that 5 minutes a day. Same with exercise. If I just exercise an hour a day, whether that's yoga or biking or whatever it is, it severely reduces the amount of like fatigue my body feels and irritability that I feel, and therefore I'm able to be more friendly, more happy, more healthy, which leads to having more friendships and more like artistic outlet energy. Therefore, I'm even more happy. And so it's like this, you know, you either spiral outward or inward kind of thing, and it's really your choice. But I think a huge part of it is that we're not taught by our parents how to do that, how to have that patience, how to have that experimentation, and that's what we should all be doing. And once we do that, that's when you can actually say, okay, these aren't really side effects. Like, I don't actually have what they call ADHD. I'm just different than a lot of people, and that's not a deficit of attention. In fact, coming from a perspective of someone who has been diagnosed with ADHD and has seen a lot of people that don't have it, I think I have
a little bit more focus than most.
And a heightened sense of attention, not a deficit of it.
Yeah, absolutely.
I seem to have an ample amount of attention, like, because
so
it's
much
everywhere
that I need
all
to be
the
doing
time.
All
Yes,
of these
exactly.
things at the same time.
Like, I don't have a deficit. In fact, you guys all have the deficit of attention. My shit is I have attention on 50 things at once all the time.
Yeah.
That's not a deficit by any stretch of, like, just look at the definition. So, again, like, that shit doesn't even make sense. Like, what they describe it as, and they literally call it, like, a mental health problem. Like, it's, most people that have ADD or ADHD end up in remedial classes.
Which is not right.
Which is stupid because most of them are way more intelligent in the math and sciences department. It's just that their reading comprehension is lower because they don't have a patient teacher that's willing to like
sit
help
down
them.
and, yeah.
Right. And then they're not given shit that they want to read that's interesting to them. If you had given me fucking fantasy and D&D shit to read when I was fucking 8, I would have been all about it, dude.
They gave me Moby Dick.
But they gave me fucking stupid shit that I never wanted to read. Like, why would I want to read about Jane Eyre? I don't care. I still to this day have not read it, and the few parts that I have, I get bored as shit because that's not my type of fucking interesting. I want to read about fucking physics and psychology and fucking like fantasy stories and role-playing games and D&D and like, you give me something like that and I can read for hours at a time.
Like, if there was some kind of adapted board game with reading,
which is what I've talked
D&D,
about. I've mentioned it. We should do that.
In schooling, like if you
and
just
all
sat
the
down
ADD,
and had a
ADHD
class,
kids, throw them in there.
Yep. Here, read
and
this
they would
book.
be,
this is what we're doing.
And the difference is they wouldn't be like, all day and waiting to get out. When the bell rang to get out, you'd have to force them. They'd be like, no, I want to keep playing.
No, this is the end of the session, guys.
Yeah.
We'll pick up tomorrow.
And then they would love it.
They would absolutely love it. It doesn't even have to be D&D. It doesn't have to be fantasy based. It could be science fiction.
Totally.
It could be historical.
There's Star Wars D&D. Like, you can do all kind of shit.
You could do it with educational board games.
Yeah.
But it's that simple, but it's not being used.
Well, to them, so there's a couple of issues with that. So first of all, in their mind, school should not be fun. It should not be a game. It should be, and by they, I mean like our government, our corporations, and the school board people that determine all of this shit. They feel like, school, I mean, I hate to go into this, but I truly believe that there's some type of fucking conspiracy. It may not be a huge conspiracy, meaning like it may not go all the way up to like crazy hardcore shit, or maybe it's only at the top echelon of society and it's not so much with like the teachers and shit like that. But I feel like most of our school is just meant to kind of train people to jump through hoops and just be another slave. Like, I didn't learn much in school, and when I talk about shit to people that graduated high school and college, I feel like, and this isn't a judgment of like I'm better or worse, because that's not how I look at it. Intelligence is just one thing of many that you can be better or worse than someone else, but that doesn't make you as a person better or worse than them,
Mm-hmm.
But they seem pretty goddamn dumb. It's actually kind of mind-boggling considering I dropped out in 9th grade, and then to be able to like go into like physics or math or psychology with someone that's like, I just graduated 4 years in college and they don't know where North Korea is, and they don't know like that Africa's a fucking goddamn continent, and like I honestly don't understand. It's like, how is that possible?
It's how the schooling system is set up down from the bottom. It's they believe that English, math, science, you got any other subjects, history, are the 4 things that you need 12 years to learn. No.
The core subjects?
The core subjects. They think you need 12 years to learn this.
Well, most of that's bullshit anyway.
It
American
absolutely
history is retarded bullshit.
All you need is 8 years, the first kindergarten through, I guess that'd be 9 years, kindergarten through 8th grade, learning general ed. Stuff to get you through every day.
Maybe.
2 + 2. And then after that, what the kid wants to do, the kid should learn. If the kid wants to be an astronaut, like I brought up before, he should have to take engineering classes. If the kid wants to work on cars, he should have to go through just auto shop and things related to that.
I think it should be much more generalized.
You think it should be
sorry,
generalized?
not generalized, much more specific. What you were saying was more generalized. I definitely think what it should be is closer to like
apprentice.
First of all, we start them earlier. No, not that specific.
Not that specific.
I definitely want to bring back the fucking trade apprenticeships because that was awesome. But no, not that specialized. Not that early anyways. Maybe like 18 to 21 start in with the apprenticeship ideas. But, or maybe even sooner as like a intern to apprentice or something. But I think we should start kids learning younger, first of all. So 3 to 4, it should all be like, and I'm not talking about preschool. I'm saying school should start 3 to 4. And that's taking over from the parents teaching the kids from like 6 months to 2.5 to 3. Because like kids can start learning, like some kids talk before they're a year old.
Yeah.
Some kids can learn to read by 3 years old. And if some can, then probably most can, to be honest.
Absolutely.
It's all about being smart about teaching children.
Exactly. It's the way they're taught.
So first of all, there's that. Second of all, we need to severely reduce the amount of hours per day that they get taught. If you start them earlier and do less every day, it actually ends up being way more healthy and more intelligent on them. Second of all, by around 9 or 10, I would say you should have them start to get somewhat specific. So we all remember those classes where we were like, what do you want to be when you grow up? And almost none of us are actually those things, but that has nothing to do with it. The trick is in letting them understand that experimentation is a good thing to do. And so by having it so like 9 or 10, you go, hey, what do you want to do with your life? And they go, I want to be an astronaut. So you go, okay, this summer, for instance, when you're out of your general ed, we're going to send you on a like 2-week NASA tour.
Fucking space camp.
And you're going to learn what it actually means to be an astronaut. And then when you come back from that, if you're still all about astronaut shit, and I don't just mean like walking around looking at shit. I mean like the grueling aspect of what it would mean to be an astronaut, at least partially. Like slowly ease them into it over 2 weeks, but then like the last few days make it hard. Like make it like they need to know what work will really go into that subject.
Put them in the spinning ball where it
Not
goes
that.
10 G's for not that young.
I mean, like have them learn some shit that would be required to like do that. Like all the training, because astronauts need like 5 to 6 hours of like workout training. Absolutely. And eating like terrible food and like all these like pokes and prods from doctors and mental training and like. Takes a lot of shit to be an astronaut, dude. On top of that, you generally have to be some type of engineer, like a master's in engineering, and like, so it's a ton of shit. Give them some indication of what that means. Don't just go, okay, sweet, you can do whatever you want. Okay, yes, I believe you can, but you need some insight on how to do that.
You need to know how to do it.
I guarantee you, half of those people are going to come back and be like, I changed my mind.
That wasn't for me.
But what I did notice was for me was instead of just, like I didn't realize what all went into astronaut, but I saw one thing of the astronaut aspect, like building rockets or robotics or engineering or math, and they'll recognize that those aspects go into what astronauts do, and they still want to be a part of what astronaut is, what space exploration is, but then they recognize, oh, I want to do more of like the math aspect. So next year, and they still continue general education during that time, but then the next summer year, you go, and this should all be paid for by our government, by the way. All of it. School, all the specialization shit, like I'm not saying parents should have to pay for this. They shouldn't.
No, because it's not realistic.
Right. Because not everyone can do that, and everyone should be allowed this opportunity. But, so then the next year, and again, this is starting at 9 and 10. So then the next year they go, oh, the math aspect, that's what I decided, no longer astronaut. So they go into that. And then you get them to MIT or Harvard or somewhere, anything, whatever. A really well, like a math school of some kind. And then they learn about the different types of math and what applications those can be used for. Are you wanting to go into the like mathematical research field? Are you wanting to go into mathematical teaching? Are you wanting to go into theoretical mathematics and physics? Like what kind of mathematics and algorithms do you want to learn and be applying to what fields? Like where, because there's a whole bunch, you just say mathematics and you're like, well, that's gigantic.
That's everything.
Like you could, everything
Literally
is mathematics.
everything.
So what part of that? And then it gets narrowed down again. And then they go, oh shit, like, well, I want to be an astronomical geometry major. Like I want to study the stars and their mathematical like distances and how they affect everything and like the gases and the physicality of it all and like so then that gets narrowed down to like, you know, astrophysics, which is a extremely like specific field, and they're like, yeah, but like astrophysics, and then the next year they changed their mind entirely because they then went to the astrophysics and they went, you know what, this wasn't what I thought it was, so I'm going to backtrack to astronomy, which is still mathematical, not quite as centralized, not quite as specific, little bit less, more outward. They only need a 4-year education instead of like an 8-year education to be an astrophysicist. You need to be a fucking master or doctorate. Astronomer, you could just have a like 4-year college degree, maybe even a 2-year, depending. And so they go, okay, no, like I'm going to back that up a bit. And then that's, by the time they're 12, they've had experience with experimentation and understanding that this is what life is. I need to be taking this on as my responsibility to figure out what it is I really want out of life. And so that by the time they're 15 and 16, they may have changed their major 2 or 3 times already. But they're learning about what they are. They're learning about who they are. They're learning about what they want out of life and where they want to apply their passions and what they really... None of us get that. Like I did not, no one taught me about that shit. No, like I wish I had had something like that. And then by the time you would be in, like you said, around 8th or 9th grade, that'd be your general education is over. You need to make some kind of decision around 15 or 16 of like, I want to start trying to specialize in something. I need to pick a field to where I'm going to be something in, basically. And whatever that is, maybe it's an artist. Maybe it's a mathematician. Maybe it's an English teacher. Whatever the fuck that is, that's when you would start, you would still have a relative general education, but it would be much less than the years up, those 9 years. Just because you still need to do some in order to keep it fresh. Mm-hmm. If you stop doing math, you're going to suck at math, no matter how good you were at it ever. So you need to maintain some semblance. So I'd say still a couple hours a day to do just the general touch-up shit. And then the rest, like 4 more hours a day after breaks and whatever else, you go into the specialization. And then maybe another hour a day you start interning into a place that hires the people that you're going to be specializing in. So, for instance, NASA, you would intern with NASA if you wanted to be an astronaut or any engineer type of rocket builder, whatever. Like, and granted, that's really fucking complicated. I know I just explained like 20 fucking minutes of like a complicated educational system, and that's not nearly what I would, like I could do so much more with it, but that just makes perfect sense to me that we really need to be specializing. Everyone's so different, and in that way you wouldn't have to deal with this whole like you and I ADHD type shit. When you have 30 to 40 kids in the same fucking classroom at that age, you
can't keep all of their...
You can't, dude. You can't keep that many kids' attention and teach that many people at one time. It's fucking bonkers to even attempt that.
Yeah.
Like, so we really need a like refresh, crash course, like reset of our educational system, basically.
See, I feel like it would be super easy to do, but at the same time, extremely hard to do. To just
it'd have to start small, a step at a time.
Small, because we could do that.
Absolutely,
but it's people. The people in charge don't want to have to restructure it from the bottom up, and
they don't want to restructure it. Period.
They don't. They don't. Absolutely not.
It works the way they want it to.
On top of implementing that system, all teachers would have to change and adapt to that. Otherwise, they'd be out of a job if you're teaching the higher level stuff where it's more specific. But I mean, I guess.
But they should also be paid more and continue to get training on that.
Absolutely.
So it shouldn't stop either.
Shouldn't stop.
They need to continue every couple of years getting psychological evaluations. Are you still fit to be a fucking teacher? Because many people aren't.
Oh my God, I've seen several fucking things lately about.
Don't get me wrong. I think I can teach a lot of shit. That should not be my job. I don't have the patience with children to be a full-time teacher of 30 to 40 kids in a classroom. I would be good at a one-on-one or one-on-two situation. A tutor. I mean, I still don't want to do that, but I'd be better at that than being a teacher. So that's what I'm like. There just needs to be so many more things in place to make this something that works for everyone. And if you paid teachers more, take it out of the goddamn movie fucking producer salaries and the football player salaries and the fucking and the banker salaries and the pharmaceutical
to be paid so much.
Dude, how many trillions of dollars a year are going to entertainment and oil, pharmaceutical, and banking corporations that are going into singular people's pockets as opposed to take a little bit of that out and put that into fucking police officers, give them more training in actual law, how to be psychological evaluations, all of that. Teachers, firefighters, pay those fuckers more, man. They're the ones that deserve it. They're the people that should be strengthening our society.
They are the structure of the society.
They should be. They're not. They should be.
They should be.
They're not.
They're not. No.
I don't believe they are.
They should be. Absolutely. You're right.
If in a society that you would want to live in, and in many societies, they are.
Absolutely.
There's plenty of cultures that have learned, mostly in Europe, mostly fucking Western and Eastern Europe,
and they weren't always
Western
perfect.
Europe.
They weren't always perfect.
No.
Plenty of trial and error.
All of those countries have very fucked up pasts.
We are taking way too long to adapt to the norms.
That is an inaccurate statement. If you look historically through time, we're actually
probably one of the younger ones.
We're the youngest society.
But the fact
basically.
that we can see that across the water, we could see the success that's happening, and we're not adapting fast enough to that when it's already in place.
What's even worse than that is a lot of those things that they're applying
are what we preach.
Are what came in some way, shape, or form from our Constitution.
Exactly.
That's the saddest part.
Yeah,
and there was a lot of this kind of shit at some point through American history. And then I don't know what happened. I mean, it's all so convoluted, to be honest. But I'm a conspiracy theorist. The fact is, in my opinion, and these are facts, is that our government and corporations are so goddamn fucking into each other and corrupt with each other that it's beyond it's beyond the point of no return, and it needs to have a complete reset. It needs to be crippled, destroyed, and built back up from scratch, because whatever has happened now, none of the politicians that we put into place seem to be doing what they say they're going to do or are told to do by the people that should be telling them what to do. Instead, they're doing shit from what the pharmaceutical company and the banks and the oil companies tell them to do, and that they don't have the interest of the people.
It's we the people, not we the elite.
But it's not, though, really. It should be, but it's not.
Yeah, that's what it...
that's what the Constitution says, but it's not. And I mean, this all goes back to the ADHD and the pills and the pharmaceutical companies and all this shit. And I get it. Some of it, at least at one time, was a side effect of capitalism. But I truly believe there are people in the elite, top 0.01%. I don't believe it's something as simple or as severe as they just have control over everything and they literally just say something and it happens. I think
they've got the sway.
It's an influential type of thing, and it's because of the amount of money that they have.
Absolutely.
Is that they're able to use super PACs for politicians. They're able to put that money into like, you know, the World Health Organization to say like, oh, our chicken is really good for you, even though it's full of fucking pesticides and like
growth
antibiotics and growth
fucking-
hormones and GMOs and all this shit. And you're like, there's all this research that says that shit causes cancer, but you're telling us it's good for us. Like, weird. And weird how you were funded by the pharmaceutical company who makes pills to cure the symptoms.
The symptoms, and who's probably making some of this some of the
Weird.
hormones put into.
So, like, at some point you have to go, okay, it's no longer just a side effect of capitalism.
yeah, this
Someone
side effect
is-
is now the kind of main problem.
Something and someone, like a group of someones, are influencing this shit heavily. Not controlling it all, but influencing it heavily. And that seems all too obvious to me. It seemed obvious to me in the George W. Bush election in 2000.
See, I was young then. I was pretty young then, and I wasn't completely aware of my surroundings in that sense.
you're still pretty fucking young.
Yeah, but now I can actually see what is happening in the world.
Well, technically, the same thing happened with Trump, is he was elected by the Electoral College, not by the popular vote.
Yeah.
But the difference is when Bush was elected the first time, George W. Bush the first time, they had like the miscounting issue in Florida was like a big, and other places, but Florida was the one that was like obviously a fucking just distraction bullshit of like, what the fuck were you guys thinking, dude? Like, but then all the shit that they do with like, you know, gerrymandering, you know what that is?
Isn't that where they... No, I'm thinking filibustering. Gerrymandering, that's redistricting or resetting the district
Redistributing
lines.
the lines for the districts, which will be some insane shit where it's like, okay, so this thing's drawn like this, to where it's like this just insane
it's like
fucking...
a puzzle piece, just to include the select surround...
And that way this state is Republican.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's fucking dumb.
Yeah. Because otherwise, it wouldn't be.
Yeah, it wouldn't be the popular vote would win, not the what the people we are that are supposed to be representing the people.
And it happens on both sides. And this dual fucking like political system doesn't work. I don't think it ever has, and it's completely corrupt on both sides. Like, Hillary wouldn't have been better than Trump. I don't care what anyone thinks. If you look into her fucking like history and the history of Bill Clinton and their organization, the Clinton Foundation, it's as corrupt as you can get, man. Like, it might be more corrupt than Trump. And that's sad to even think about that.
Right?
And Bernie would have been the man, but they pushed him the fuck out. The DNC didn't want Bernie because they knew he would have won. So they went with Hillary. Because the DNC is just as corrupt as the fucking RNC. Or whatever. I don't know if it's actually the RNC, the Republican National Convention versus the Democratic National Convention, but let me check. RNC versus DNC. It is. It's the RNC. Sweet, I was saying it right.
Look at you.
Yeah. I can't say I know a ton about politics, but I know the corruption of politics. I've studied a ton about like how the corporations are connected to the politicians and our government, and then like all of the shit that the CIA and FBI and NSA have done that have basically fucked over the people in this country and other countries that are literally now conspiracies, no longer theories. They are actual conspiracies.
Facts, like released
So,
information. And that hasn't stopped.
No.
It's still happening.
Not at all. It's happening constantly.
All those, like
it happened. The most
even
recent one was with the guy who, not Manning, but the guy who's in Russia that dealt with WikiLeaks and showed how the NSA was using or spying on everyone.
The Snowden?
Snowden, yes. Edward Snowden.
Yeah.
So Snowden was one of the most recent, and the crazy thing is America would just execute all of those people without trials.
If he didn't go to Russia. Absolutely.
Well, that's why they flee.
Why.
Is like, and that shit's crazy. That like, okay, so you told the American population the truth
And
the American government is allowed to execute you, and the American people, which should be kneeling at your feet, thanking you every day of their lives for telling you that, aren't protecting you.
Yeah.
Something ain't right here, man.
It's because it's not directly affecting the people, so the people don't want to do anything about it.
Even when it is. 9/11 directly affected the people, and that is 100%, without a doubt, a conspiracy.
See, I'm torn on that one. I'm not sure.
That's fine. I'm just letting you know that, and I'm not saying it's like a guarantee, like I'm not saying the FBI or George Bush or anyone specific necessarily, but what I am saying is that it wasn't just some Middle Eastern terrorists hijacking planes. There was a lot more to that than meets the eye. And that's what I mean by conspiracy.
So can you look this up? Didn't we put somebody in power over there?
No, I don't even need to look that up.
The founding of Al Qaeda?
So what happened in the late 70s and early 80s and mid 80s, I think also, is the George
Senior.
Herbert Bush, George H. Bush,
Yeah.
who after being president was then head of the CIA. By the way,
why? Like,
well, because it's all in the they're all in those bones. They're all in those
in the circle.
organizations
Yeah.
that fucking that's more evidence to support conspiracy shit. Like that's what I'm saying. Like this shit gets stupid when you. It's all there to see, and people are like, conspiracy theorists are crazy. I'm like, dude, just look.
Look it up.
Just look.
Yeah.
Like he was head of the CIA after being president, and you think that's just like, that's not nepotism. That's not like the circle increasing of like then. But anyways, so what happened in the Middle East was like during the Cold War. That whole thing with Russia and the Middle East and fucking that all of that shit, we provided weapons, ammunition, and money to the Middle East to help fight in the Cold War against Russia and all that shit. And I don't want to like be incorrect, so I'm not going to say it certainly is, but I think that at the time it was still the USSR. I believe
that I don't
doesn't
know.
matter. But during that time, we were fighting with Russia and some other places around that general area. And we trained them. We put Saddam in power and trained those fucking people. And that was George H. Bush.
Yep.
When he was president. Did that. And then 10, 15 years later, whatever the fuck it was, when his son took over presidency, like, and again, which didn't happen by popular vote.
Yep.
Happened through electoral college. All of a sudden, the next year, 9/11 happens. And then we go into war. And we're looking for weapons of mass destruction, which, by the way, 10 years later, we still didn't find. All I'm saying is, it's obvious it's a conspiracy. Now, again, I don't know whether or not specific people are or are not involved. For all the fuck I know, and it's more likely to be the case, George Bush is a puppet.
Yeah.
I don't believe that he has any real power.
Yeah.
He's a figurehead. He was put into that position by people that have real power, which in my opinion is most likely the bankers and pharmaceutical and oil companies.
Who have
all the money in the world.
Got profit from George Bush's senior's fucking campaign, the Gulf War and shit.
There's this chick on YouTube. Her channel is called Really Graceful. And I think I showed you a few of her videos.
I think you showed me one or two.
It's the ones that started to open your mind about that, about the Pizzagate shit.
Yeah.
So she actually goes into it, and I hadn't even delved that deep. I didn't find some of the shit that she found. Like, she's really good at researching this stuff. She found out that, like, over the past 50 years, all the wars that we've gotten into were basically wars with people that did not have a central banking system in their country. And then after the wars,
there was a banking system in that country. A central
banking system got set up in that country. And so that alone that's too big of a coincidence. I do not believe that is something that could have just coincidentally happened over the last fucking like 50 years and 10 countries that's happened with in the last 50 years.
What is it called? Imperialization. That's what it is.
Basic. That's one word for it. Yeah. I mean, privatization is another.
Imperialistic. Yeah,
but imperialism, yes.
What the Constitution itself was made to prevent, or not, maybe the Declaration of Independence. We didn't want intended to prevent or keep imperialization from happening. But
no, it shit's crazy, dude. So, and I think it goes back to where we originally started this conversation at, with the pharmaceutical companies and with the fucking pills that they give to people. I truly believe it's all a fucking conspiracy. And again, I'm not saying that what's like Pfizer, isn't that one of the let me see, highest earning pharmaceutical companies. Pfizer, top of the list. So, Novartis is another one, never heard of them. Johnson and Johnson.
Isn't that the baby oil company? Oh my God.
They're actually a pharmaceutical company. Wow, dude. I did not know that. Oh no, I'm sorry. Pfizer's ranked 3 on the list.
That's number 1.
It's not showing me right there. It jumps to number 3. Let me click on this link. Oh, this is Wikipedia. I actually don't trust Wikipedia anymore
because it can be publicly edited.
It says Johnson & Johnson's rank 1.
Wow. Oh, take your babies.
Okay, so no, another one down the page says Pfizer is the largest in the world, but anyway, so dude, I didn't know the fucking Johnson & Johnson thing. I see their logo on everything. I did not know they were a pharmaceutical company. That blows my mind. More evidence that it's a fucking conspiracy, man.
They're in it for the money.
So,
see, I want to know what pharmaceuticals are they selling. I only know of the baby oil.
You can look it all up. It's all it has to be, it has to be published publicly. Yeah. It's a legal thing that they have to publish. So that's another thing is you can see where all of this information is. It's all here if you just look for it.
The internet is the greatest invention of humankind.
So, no, even before that, though, you could go down to your local fucking clerk. What is it? Where's the place where you go to,
the library?
Town hall, where you go to, get married and all that shit?
Yeah, town hall, city hall.
City hall. So you have to... town hall, like I'm living in fucking 1800s and shit. You have to go to fucking...
Jesus, Chalupa.
Oh, that was... Oh, okay. I was like...
Snoring.
What monster is here? So you would have to go down to your local office, and all of that shit has to be filed. Like planning your if you're gonna go to a building structure, and you're like, okay, I bought this land, I want to build on it. You have to go file down there, and it has to be approved. Same with all this shit. Or you could go to, the FDA local office in your city, and they'll the FDA has to have information about all the pharmaceuticals that are fucking so.
Yeah, will they always give it out to whoever? Is it public knowledge? If you were to go down to one of those offices,
almost all of it has to be public knowledge. I think there are some exceptions when you're dealing with if they're not released yet, obviously.
Yeah.
They don't have to do anything if it's not made to sell yet. If they're doing testing and shit. But there is a place you can go to check out that also. It's way different. But so drugs associated with Johnson & Johnson, meaning they produce them. Aveeno.
Isn't that
Wow. I'm going to stop using Aveeno.
What is Aveeno?
The only time I've ever seen it's a topical that does if you get a burn or a rash or a aloe Aveeno lotion, that type of shit. I'll never use that again. And man, it was so good too. Damn it.
You should grow some aloe plants.
My mom used to. Benadryl.
No way.
God damn it!
Fucking way.
You're kidding me with this shit,
I don't use
man.
that anymore.
Bengay. So most of this actually, Johnson & Johnson, it seems, doesn't do... Okay, this is weird. I didn't even think about the difference between, like, over-the-counter pharmaceuticals and prescription pharmaceuticals, but technically... It's still pharmaceuticals. I didn't know that. I didn't know that.
Pharmaceuticals.
I never looked at it like that.
Tylenol, just like that. That's a pharmaceutical. You can go into your local 7-Eleven.
Okay, so here's some of the actual, like, they do have a ton of ones that are actually for prescription, like Darzalex, Dorobax, Intelence, Endurant, which I don't, like, what is an NNRTIS? I don't even know what the fuck that is. So, okay, Lactaid, Lubriderm, which I've also used that lotion a ton. For tattoo shit, Lubriderm was one of the best to go to because they have A&D Lubriderm. So good.
I go Aquaphor.
Monostat, never used that one, but I know what it's for.
What is it for?
It's vaginal fucking anti-infectives. Motrin, which is another vaginal type thing. Mylanta, Neosporin.
No
what
way!
The fuck, dude?
You know what? I'm sure we could pull out. I'm sure
I'm only at
Johnson
the
has their
ends.
name.
I'm only Neutrogena. All those Neutrogena commercials.
Ridiculous.
Nicorette.
Oh, don't try to quit smoking with
Pepsid.
Nicorette. Pepsid is
Rogaine.
If you want it. Is that really a pharmaceutical?
Apparently all of this stuff is. Sudafed. I'm skipping a ton, by the way. I'm only going for the ones that I think almost everyone would have heard of. Because there's a ton in here that I've never heard of. Tylenol is Johnson & Johnson.
Yep.
Holy shit, dude.
That's
Good. I mean,
ridiculous.
I don't use Tylenol. I never have.
I'm trying to stay away from any
I just don't take any pills at all anymore.
Fucks with your liver.
None. Yeah, exactly. All the Tylenol shit. Holy fuck. Visine.
Isn't that
The eye drop
my
shit,
God.
dude.
Get clear.
Zyrtec.
Zyrtec? No. See, this is ridiculous.
They've literally got at least one in every letter of the alphabet. And way more than one in some letters of the alphabet. And
You know, I bet one day they were looking down this list and they're like,
oh, and there's a list of discontinued drugs.
I wonder why they were discontinued.
They're probably just old, to be honest.
Yeah.
But dude, that's crazy. So, anyways, I don't remember exactly what the point I was getting to because we got lost in that rabbit hole of Johnson & Johnson and
we were
pharmaceuticals.
looking for the top pharmaceutical companies making money. I don't remember what for.
So it all was coming back to the conspiracy theories of, like, you get to this point where you connect all these dots, and at some point you have to be like, it's not a coincidence, man, that, like, these pharmaceutical companies are getting these laws passed in Congress and Senate to make it so that they can charge whatever the fuck they want for their drugs, and that they can get away with, like, you know how you'll have I don't see them anymore because I don't watch TV the same anymore, but I used to and I'm sure that they still do. I used to constantly see the commercials of, are you feeling sad and depressed and lonely and blah blah blah, and then at the end of that it goes, at the end of the commercial, which it's trying to show you this person that's happy while telling you about your own sadness. So that's like a trick, like a subconscious fucking trick, subliminal messaging. And then at the end they go really fast and quiet. They go, could be attributed to, like, death and impotence and suicidal thoughts and homicidal thoughts and diarrhea and death and more death and violation of your liver and fucking all, like, you're like, what the fuck, man? Like 80 crazy things that you're like, I'm just a little sad. I think I'll stick with my sadness, thanks. And then a year later, what happens, and this was across the board when I was growing up, is you would see the lawyer commercial going,
Did somebody die?
Did you
from
or a
taking this?
family member die? And I'm like, yes, I died from taking that. If so, call now because you could be involved in our class action lawsuit. And you know what happens?
Tons of money.
The pharmaceutical companies aren't kept in check by the FDA and Congress and Senate the way they should be. So what happens is they made about $200 billion off of that drug by putting it out without doing the proper testing and without the FDA doing what they're supposed to do properly. And a whole bunch of people died, and they're like, it's fine because we made $200 billion. And then in the class action lawsuit, the lawyers get about $500 million for damages. And then that goes to the families of people that lost family members, or people that are like, my husband's just in a coma and he has been for like 2 years now because of this drug. He took it for a week and he's been in a coma for 2 fucking years. And the pharmaceutical company went, well, because the priority in a capitalist society is the bottom line, monetarily speaking, and we don't actually get in trouble for all these people dying. Even though if I had gone out and stabbed one person,
You'd be prosecuted.
I'd be prosecuted.
Of the law.
And so they're not prosecuted. They're allowed to kill as many people as they fucking want.
Not held accountable for it
as long as they pay out the court fines of their class action lawsuit. And they almost always just settle out of court. Almost always, because they're like, here, we'll just pay you $500 million. We made $200 billion, and $500 million is only half of $1 billion. So we still made $199 billion and $500 million.
Yeah.
So we'll take it. And then that happens every year. And we're just all okay with it. It's a fucking conspiracy, and I don't see how anyone can be like, no, man, it's not a conspiracy, dude.
Another thing, you were saying those ads that pop up. I've found
the lawyer ones or the pharmaceutical
ones. They're catered towards like the elderly, because if you find a channel that's like the demographic is older people,
totally.
It's going to be filled with those commercials. The people who are already taking those cocktails daily. Oh, there's another pill that can make me
just
happier.
One more pill is all it takes.
Let me add that to it, and then boom, they've got 30 pills they're taking daily.
Exactly.
7 times a day. It's
out of control, dude.
It's out of control.
And then that's only one aspect, because then you start looking at like the oil companies do the same thing. The BP oil spill in the Gulf, like, killed a shit ton of fucking sea life.
It ruined an entire ecosystem.
And it's still fucked.
Yeah.
Like, it will never be okay again.
And they're like, they paid some money?
And they just paid a little bit of money. And basically they were like, oh, we're sorry, we'll help clean up, but you can't clean up oil off of dead fish, and you can't bring dead fish that are covered in oil back to life. Thanks for trying.
Yeah. Thanks BP.
And then you've got the bankers, like the most recent and most like severe example of which is the 2008 market crash and the housing crash. You know what I'm talking? Did you know about that?
Not really.
You're kidding me.
Young.
That's right. You're young. Yeah. Fuck, dude. This is the most in-your-face, outrageous thing that I have ever fucking seen in my entire life, and how anyone was okay with it. It infuriates me for them. Like, I'm infuriated with the people and for the people, because it's just unacceptable to even consider, let alone to have allowed to happen, and then a decade later be like, fuck it, I guess, nothing we can do.
So what happened with it?
So, in like, somewhere in the early 2000s, Alan Greenspan and the Fed. So Alan Greenspan was like banker, and then got put in charge. He was the like head of the Federal Reserve. So the Federal Reserve is not a government organization. It's not a U.S. organization of any kind. It's a private European organization, but it is what controls the money of the U.S. dollar. The Federal Reserve prints the U.S. dollar and sells it to us for about, I don't know exactly what it is, 8 cents or something.
Why are we not making our own? Why is this not controlled?
Oh, we've tried before. Lincoln tried with greenbacks and he got assassinated. That's 100% accurate. It's all here, dude. I'm telling you, like, it's all fucking here.
I didn't know that.
We've tried before, and it ends badly. We've gotten into wars about it before. We've gone into other places like Syria to try to prevent them from getting off what's called the petrodollar. Because everyone's trying to get off of the petrodollar. And the Fed and bankers are trying to prevent that because they're the... Anyway, so what happened in '08 was the market crashed because years before that, they built up a housing bubble where they were like, okay, let's default on all of these stocks and loans and shit. And just like, we're betting against it. Like, we know it's going to bubble. It happened in the 20s with the Depression. Mm-hmm. It happened again in like, what, I don't know exactly, the 50s or something. Like, it's happened numerous times, the 70s, maybe something like that. But it's happened countless fucking times. And in '08, it happened again. Only this time, it was fucking way more retarded. So, it crashed. A shit ton of people lost their homes. Homeless. Banks just kicked them out. Fuck you. We don't want you here no more. Leave. And like, a lot of people tried to fight against it, but there's really nothing you could do because the police and the government and the states were all on the fucking bank sides. Capitalism, man. Like, and I want me to say one thing about how it's not capitalism after I'm done with this whole spiel, because it's not. This is what made it officially no longer capitalism. If it ever was before even. But this especially made it. It cannot be based on what happened during this. So, you know, people lose all their homes, and they're like, oh, fuck, like, and then the stocks plummet. So all of the people that were dealing in the stock market, not all, I should say, all of the regular people that deal in the stock market lost all their money, and basically, like, a shit ton of them committed suicide. Because they lost everything. Like, all their money was in the stock market. And when it crashed, they're like, I have nothing. Like, I have less than nothing. I owe money. I have nothing. And so they were jumping out of the window of the fucking stock exchange on Wall Street. Like,
that's...
Yeah. And that's just the beginning. So, then what happened is the banks went, shit. Yeah, we fucked up. Sorry, but we need a bailout because we're too big to fail. If we fail, you all fail. Like, your whole economy fails if we fail. And so our Congress basically is ultimately who decided it, but heavily influenced by the bankers. Money, of course, went into their pockets. So Congress then went, bailout or let the economy fail. If we bail them out, you're not a capitalist society, because in a capitalist society, that means a private organization either succeeds or fails on their own. Yep. No help from the communist government, capitalist banks. Or we let society fuck up for whatever, 5 years, 10 years, whatever it takes. Greece has done it. Fuck, tons of places has fucked their economy up and come back from it. It's not like they just cease existing. Yeah. They come back from it with a better system. But we didn't do that. We said, no. Let's take a shit ton of the taxpayer dollars and bail out the banks. So, right there, no longer capitalist society.
Yeah, government's too far involved.
Government got involved in privatized business and bailed them out. I don't care if you say it's too big to fail. It doesn't matter what justification you put on it. The fact is, you cannot be a capitalist society if you have the government bailing out corporations, because that's not fucking capitalism. Second of all, what happened that same year is, with that bailout money, those banker CEOs took hefty bonuses.
See, that's dumb.
Hefty. And by hefty, I mean millions of dollars. Just as their bonuses. Not to mention, they still got paid
their full
their salary.
Which is in the hundreds of thousands,
which is
millions.
In the way higher than that. Millions. Millions and millions.
That's dumb.
Oh, yeah. No, their bonus being millions is only a fraction of their annual salary, which is billions. So, what is it? What's the J.P. Morgan CEO annual salary? And again, this is all $1.5 million was received as a salary, $5 million as a bonus, 0 in stock options, and 20 million $20.5 million was awarded as stock, and 205,000 came from other types of compensation. So if you add that up, it's $27 million, 205,000 for the year. For the year. $27 million for that year. And that's not to mention anything he may have gotten back channeling.
That's just going straight to J.P. Morgan?
No. That's going to the CEO of J.P. Morgan.
Yeah.
J.P. Morgan is a company. The chairman, James Dimon, that's his name, or Dimon, whatever, got $27 million this last year. And again, that's only his, because he also does shit like buys up real estate while it's cheap and then sells it while it's not.
Yeah.
Buys up stock shit and then sells
cheap.
So believe me, it gets into they make billions of dollars a year. They're billionaires. People that do, and then after he's done here, he'll go over to work for the Fed. Or he'll go work in, President Trump's economy advisor. Bank affiliation. Yeah. Gary Cohn was... let me see. So now that I know his name, Gary, how do you spell Cohn again?
K-O-N-E?
O-H-N. Bank. So he was with Bank of America. He was the CEO of Bank of America before he went over to be Trump's. And so it's all this thing that they go in and out of this cycle of fucking, they're like a bank CEO, and then they're in the CIA, and then they're Trump's advisor to the economy of America, and then the next thing you know, they're a Fed person who's like determining federal regulations of our money and making an insane amount of money. So anyways, that's beside the point. Point is, 2008 happened, the crash, banks got bailed out, the CEOs and most of the like high up employees, CFOs and CTOs and vice presidents and shit, all got insane salaries and bonuses. None of that was required to be paid back to the people that they fucked over by creating the housing bubble, which crashed the market, which sent the banks into bankruptcy, which supposedly forced Congress into bailing out the banks because they were too big to fail. None of that needed to be paid back to anyone in society, anyone in America. That the taxpayers that paid the bank bailout. Then on top of that, the people that ended up like being so goddamn irate about being homeless and about what happened and did something about it ended up going to jail, while none of the bankers went to jail. Not one of them. Not a single one of them went to jail.
The ones that were the cause of the problem.
And still to this day, they're doing the same actions. They're currently in Congress trying to repeal like Glass-Steagall or something like that. I don't know exactly what it would do, but it's like it's been like 4 or 5 or 6 decades of like protecting us from this thing, and if they repeal it, it's basically gonna like cripple the economy again, and they're basically just trying to do it all again. And if they get away with it, then they're just gonna it's just gonna keep happening. They got away with it in 2008, man. They got away with it in like the early fucking 90s or some shit. It's just like,
Do you think they would be able to get away with it again?
I don't see how they could not, with everyone just letting Okay, it's the same thing that keeps happening. It's a trend. No matter which aspect or area you look at it, in the higher echelon and hierarchy of our society, you have these people that seem to just be allowed to do whatever the fuck they want and get away with it. And even if it's right in front of the face of everyone. And then you only have a small amount of people that actually see it for what it is, because the rest are so afraid that you can't see straight when you're that afraid. When you're in a terrorized state repeatedly, your mind doesn't function properly the same way. Your mind officially becomes like, I will choose safety and security over freedom because I'm so afraid that I'm not going to have freedom. But it's a double, like it doesn't make sense, because you're giving up your freedom to have safety and security, even though you're saying you're doing it because you want freedom. Like, it doesn't make any fucking sense. And so, like, in 2001, 9/11 happened. In 2002 or 3, let me see. I don't want to be wrong about this one. So, Patriot Act.
Oh.
Date of enactment. I'm wrong. So, 9/11, 2001
is the day
was the day that fucking the event happened in New York and at the Pentagon in Washington, supposedly, all that shit, terrorism, war with Iraq and all that bullshit. October 26th, 2001.
So by the end of the year,
1 month and 1 month and 15 days later, the Patriot Act, which basically stripped every American of any freedom they've ever had and any rights that they had had from the Bill of Rights, were stripped away by the Patriot Act a month and a half after a terrorist attack. And this is what I'm talking about, why it's an obvious fucking conspiracy. And when you just start linking this shit together and you're like, weird. So, like, right after that, they were able to pass this fucking act that gave them the ability to take away all our rights. Interesting. Weird how that happened.
Of being a terrorist or someone who would cause terror to the people,
yeah,
they can do anything.
Right after the bank bailouts, a bunch of fucking bankers put a shit ton of bonus money right into their pockets without having to spend any time in jail or answer for any of their crimes. Weird how this just like a domino effect, just one after the other. It just all keeps happening. It's not like, and to me this stuff was obvious. Like, to me this shit is so fucking clearly connected and obvious that, like, I don't believe George Bush actually had any part to play in this other than being the person in the front.
The person on the pedestal.
He's not the wizard in The Wizard of Oz. He's the guy at the front door that goes, "The wizard's not available right now," and then slams the thing in your face. That's the analogy of what George Bush is in this scenario. If anything, it's more likely that his daddy was closer to the fucking wizard, but it's not him either. I don't believe. I believe it's the people in the Fed.
The people who are
the bank CEOs. Because you can even look at videos of, like, it'll be like inauguration, the inauguration speech and shit, and all kinds of the presidential speeches, and there's always a few people behind him. If you know who those people are or know what to look for, you'll be like, oh shit, that was the guy that was the CEO of Bank of America. And then you'll notice these weird things where they'll be like, the president will be speaking about something, and then the guy who was the CEO bank's CEO and shit will be like, say something in his ear, and you'll notice the president just shut the fuck up. Like, he's just a puppet being told what to do. Like, it's really some dude in the background and it's probably not even that guy.
It's probably some guy
telling him, like, hey, this is, because the thing is, they all get together and talk about this shit. Like, there's like a G20 summit, and there's the Bohemian Grove, and there's probably way more shit we don't know anything about. And that even all boils into like the Podesta and Clinton emails, which was part of the Pizzagate thing.
Yeah.
Like, so dude, it's all fucking connected, man. It really is. And I don't like to be this like, it's a giant conspiracy. But I'm telling you, like, when you start looking at it, you can't deny that, like, there's too many coincidences in this shit for it. I'm not saying all of them are conspiracies. I'm saying there has to be some. Because it's too coincidental, and it's proven throughout our just short history of the last 100 years that our presidents have been involved in conspiracies and continue to be involved in conspiracy. So it just blows my mind that it's like all still okay and that this happens so frequently. And
no one's doing anything to stop it.
And it starts with doping people up with pharmaceuticals, prescription drugs like Ritalin, Adderall, Tofranil, fucking antidepressants, anti-anxiety, and then it starts in school with like
brainwashing them.
They're not sitting still, so we need them on pills in order to sit still so that we can brainwash them because they're disrupting other people's brainwashing in here. And then when you get out of school, you're like, I don't actually know anything about like, how do my taxes work?
Yeah. What is a 401k?
Right. What is a fucking 401k? Like, what does it mean if, like, my body doesn't react well to, like, the meat that I buy at grocery stores? What does it mean if I feel, like, sad in my life? Oh, it means you need to take pills. And, oh, that means that fucking you're just, like, you know, you're not taking the right pills and you need to see another doctor and shit like that. Goddamn. But, dude, I have to put this towel on the chair because otherwise the cat hair... And I will just be like sneezing all the rest of the day.
I'm happy I'm not around a cat anymore.
It doesn't affect me now that we don't do D&D so much.
And not out here so much.
Yeah, sitting out here for 8 to 10 hours was like a big thing. But so anyway, man, that was my whole down the rabbit hole of the conspiracy of our country. And
the hole gets deeper.
The
hole only gets deeper.
It's deeper and deeper. And it gets bigger and bigger because... we just all keep allowing it. You know, your question was, do you think they're just going to like be allowed to keep doing that? And the answer is obviously they are because they haven't been stopped yet and they keep doing it. And they're getting more and more brazen is what's happening.
And like, that's what's scary is that the fact that it's so out there in people's faces.
Obvious.
And these people are just leaving it there.
But is it? Because most people don't seem to think it's that obvious. Like I don't believe I'm just delusional.
It's because they've all been in that brainwashed state where it's like
that's what I believe is that they're afraid.
Like I say often, it's not affecting me. Why should I need to know about it? That's
because it is affecting you.
Because it's
affecting
down to the bottom roots,
and it's going to affect your children, and it's going to affect your families and your friends and your livelihood.
It's going to affect everything, but it's not directly affecting them in that moment. So why should they care in that moment? That's the thing. I think that's the mass ideology.
Anyone that says that and believes that is dumb because it is affecting them in that moment.
Absolutely,
and it will continue to affect them. Maybe not directly. But I even believe it's directly affecting them. Like your mental state is severely affected by like your daily life and your struggles and what you believe about reality. And if what you believe about reality is that your doctors have the best of your interests and they're trying to only help you and not make money off of you, then you're delusional and you're not going to be healthy.
I think another part of it is we're thrown into this society where it's already pretty difficult to survive. So people, they're all wrapped up in their day-to-day lives just trying to survive, just trying to figure shit out and not actually be able to delve deep and figure the shit out.
Maybe they should come on to the FSO show and figure some shit out.
Maybe they should.
Maybe.
But it's it's the unwillingness of the people that really scares me in the end. Like,
see, I don't think they're unwilling. I think they're uneducated and naive, like ignorance.
That's a better way of putting it. The ignorance of the people, the mass ideology that ignorance is bliss, and
I fucking hate it. I spent my whole life choosing informed discontent over blissful ignorance. And I'd rather have momentary periods of sadness and anger while being informed than try to go through a fake. And I say fake because I don't believe there's 100% period of happiness, of bliss, no matter how ignorant you are.
It's like back in the medieval times where people didn't know how to read, but anybody who it was in power knew how to read.
Yeah.
Now it's people don't know how to figure out the truth.
Yeah. Well, it's too much misinformation.
Too much misinformation, fake news.
And you're taught from an early age to not believe any of this shit. You're taught like,
don't believe
crazy,
what's on the internet.
dude. They're conspiracy theorists and they're hippies and they don't know what the fuck they're talking about, man. Like, gotta stop listening to those fucking conspiracy theorists.
But believe it or not, 100 years down the future, some of those hippie conspiracy theorists are going to be prophets.
Right. Well, they're proven right
Yeah.
often. Like, I don't know exactly the people that said it, but there were people when like the MK Ultra thing was going on that said, like, hey, they're testing drugs on us, and everyone was like, you're fucking crazy.
Why would the government
Our government
do that?
would never do that to its people.
We just got out of a war that we won. They're protecting us.
25 years later, the redacted documents come out that are like, oh yeah, no, we totally did that to like thousands of people in U.S. and Canada.
Yep.
Yeah, totally happened.
People have died
from
this, and you know
people
what?
died.
Now you know.
Yeah.
Too late.
Yep.
And it's still not stopping. It's still not stopping. It's the worst thing. I need to use the restroom.
Yeah, do it. I'm gonna look up some shite.
You do that. Yeah, unbuckle.
But it definitely gets it's getting crazy out there, guys. I hope you understand and recognize. Just question it. That's all I'm asking of anyone, is to just question it. Like, don't just accept what anyone tells you. Don't accept what anyone tells you. I don't care how intelligent you think they are. I don't care like, you know, what background they have. Try to remember that to be skeptical and questioning is extremely healthy. And then do the research. Like, it's all here, especially now when every phone and computer, like in America, is connected to the internet, and you can literally just type all this shit in, and you know you're gonna find information on both sides. But if you're willing to do the actual research and go through both sides, you'll recognize the inconsistencies, and that will help you determine which ones are false and which ones aren't. So you can always figure out like a false statement or a lie when you can pull apart the fabric. So, you know, if it's telling you something that might seem like what you've heard and be accurate, but then at some point you research something else that you're like, oh no, like this has a part that contradicts one or two other parts of what that said, then that's a thread that needs to be pulled and needs to be questioned. And that's one of those things that it'll start unraveling, and you'll be like, okay, wait, like there must be something more to this. And that doesn't mean that it's automatically like our government conspiracy and shit. It just means that someone's not telling you the truth, and it's your job to figure that out.
Question everything.
Question everything. We're figuring shit out, man, on the FSO Show.
Figuring shit out.
Figuring shit out.
That's all I'm trying to do, man. Just figure shit out.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's what we all should be doing, and I feel like a lot of people on this planet just want to already think that they have it figured out and basically be able to go through existence being like, meh, I figured out what I needed to. I don't really need to continue figuring anything out, and I just want to like work and then go home and relax and watch TV. Like, I don't ever want to have to actually do anything difficult or like grow or experience new shit or like and certainly when you're talking about anything on the dark side of shit. Like if anyone's like, oh, that's too dark for me. I was actually having this conversation with a dude at work the other day. 2 dudes at work. Have you heard of the show Making of a Murderer on Netflix?
I have heard of it. I've not seen it.
Have you heard of the show The Keepers on the Netflix?
No.
Okay. So they're both relatively dark topics and relatively dark shows. Both of them are series. So it's not like just a movie or like an hour-long episode. Making of a Murderer is basically about how these cops in this like fucked up small town framed a dude for murder. He spent like a shit ton of time in jail, like 2 decades or something, like a ridiculous amount of time in jail. Got out, was proven not guilty, got money for being not guilty, and then ended up being a murderer again after, because he had been in jail for 18 years and like probably been raped and
So
was
literally
basically
turned into a
making
killer.
of a murderer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess that's where the title comes from.
Think they got that one right. It's dark, but it's nowhere near the kind of dark shit that The Keepers is. And I'll call him a buddy at work, was like, he couldn't get through Making of a Murderer. And I was like, I mean, I get it. Like, it's dark, but I mean, have you gone, like, were you framed by a police and does it bring up some shit? He was like, no.
Have you become a murderer? Does this relate to you?
No, it's just, he's the type of person that probably can't handle a full face-to-face with his own darkness. And that's what I believe about, I'm kind of hippie spiritual in that regard too, energetically speaking. Like, I think that you can only acknowledge something that you're willing to face in yourself. So, and most people that I meet or hear about or come across, like even on social media, dating sites, all this shit, like everyone's like, I just want to like deal with the light and be happy and love. And I don't want to like, I don't want to be around negativity and experience that shit. And I'm like, you're tuning out half of existence. Like, don't get me wrong, I get that you don't want to focus on only negativity and you don't want that in your life a ton, but like, it's there, it's a part of you. You need to recognize and experience it and be able to see it. And they don't want to.
I do believe positivity is the key to longevity, but the negativity in your life, whatever brings, like, whatever's negative, like the dark side, like what you were saying, the dark side of everything, that's a learning experience that you need to go to.
Well, you require that contrast. How can you understand the positive love aspect
without
if you can't
going
understand
through and knowing what the
so
negative
there
side
needs
is.
to be a back and forth.
Exactly.
That's my point. But there's also a depth to each of those. And I'm also a firm believer in the fact that you can't experience the same depth of love and positive feelings unless you can experience the equal amount of negative depth.
Yeah.
I just believe that because it's like an atom, right? They have a positive charge, a negative charge, which have to be equal on each side. Has to be. And then they have the electron. And so that's a big deal. Like, it requires that balance, that equality of understanding each side equally. Otherwise you can't, like, you know, if I'm like, oh, I'm super negative, emo, goth, like I'm only in darkness all the time, you're stuck there, but you're also not at a deep level of that experiencing it. You're in a shallow state of that where it's mostly ego bullshit because you're not experiencing depth of the other side is why.
Yeah.
And then there's no contrast. So you're just paralyzed by this one shallow, shitty area of like shadow. I mean, it's stupid. It's ridiculous. But I believe the same on the opposite side. It's ridiculous to just be like, oh, I'm just going to skim the shallowness of this like positivity side and make sure that I'm always smiling and doing my absolute best, even though I feel negative things. You can't stop yourself from feeling fear and sadness and even judgment and hate. You can't prevent those feelings. You can attempt to deny them, but again, that's not actually preventing them. That's not doing anything.
They're still happening.
That's hurting you, if anything.
Yeah.
So, again, though, The big deal, I think, is that people don't want to acknowledge those aspects. They don't want to recognize those dark things inside of themselves, because then they have to be honest about those things in themselves.
See, everybody has a shadow, but those are the people that just don't want to look at it.
And that's their choice. That I can't make them do that. But what I'm saying is that it was interesting to me to recognize the psychological understanding of how, to some people, just watching, not even being involved in it, just watching a show about someone being framed, and then that turning them into a murderer was so much they couldn't handle it. And then to show the contrast of darkness, the deeper side is the keepers is so much infinitely darker, to the point that, and I'm going to use this as an example because I know myself very well in the dark and positive side. I can go to a depth I don't think most people have been to, and that's because of my experiences. That's because I've been to those dark places, like being robbed and being stabbed and shit like most people haven't experienced. That gets you to that depth, which means I can appreciate another positive depth more, I think. And so I can't finish The Keepers, the show. I can't, because it's at a dark depth that I can't fathom. It scares me. That kind of darkness scares me. What it's about is the darkest thing I can imagine, and darker.
What? Give me some context.
So, let me do.
Because now I want to watch it.
So the review, I'll tell you the review is, or what it's about, I guess. So Netflix's latest docu-series tackles the unsolved murder of Kathy Kesnick, a beloved nun and Catholic high school teacher in Baltimore. After disappearing on November 7th, 1969, Kesnick's body was found nearly 2 months later, but to this day the killer remains unnamed. In the 90s, the case returned to the spotlight after one of Kesnick's former students accused the high school's chaplain of sexual abuse. Claims that she was taken to Kesnick's then undiscovered corpse and threatened. Director Ryan White pieces together the story through conversations with friends, relatives, journalists, government officials, and Baltimore citizens, hoping to uncover the truth. And what it gets into is basically that there was like dozens of these Catholic schoolgirls from like 13 to 17 every year for like a decade or more that were basically raped by these two Catholic priests. It was an all-girls Catholic school, but the two highest people there were Catholic priests. The only two dudes, and they're old fucking dudes.
I don't
and
agree
then,
with that system. But that was the 60s.
And then, in the series, they show how like the head Catholic priest dude, the like highest guy there, whatever, the headmaster, whatever the fuck, he would invite like the police chief and politicians and police officers and other people to join in and be involved in this kind of shit with like, and it happened for so long for so many different people. I got to like
Who do you go to for help in that case?
you wait until 30 years later apparently to come out with saying it. And I think the majority of these people actually were like so propagandized and fucked up in the head by it from what they were told, like that it was either their fault, or if they tell anyone, God will kill, like that kind of shit. Like God will kill your family.
Yeah.
If you tell anyone. And you're being told this at such a young age by a commanding presence, authoritarian figure that's supposed to be your like your messenger to God. You're supposed to go through
to believe that he's the one in charge.
You're supposed to go through this person to God, and he's supposed to tell you what God is saying, and he's telling you that if you tell anyone that he basically like touched you this way, first of all, it's your fault this is happening because you're a bad girl, and second of all, if you were to ever mention what I tell you from God, he will strike down your family and you and all this stuff. So I got like halfway through the first episode before I had to cut it off there. And again, I'm telling you right now, there has never been anything in my life that I've been like, I can't continue watching this or seeing this. I've seen afterbirth after a pregnancy was just like, I've seen a baby being born firsthand and the afterbirth and been able to eat without worrying about it. Like I have a depth most people I don't think could fucking get to, other than like people in like maybe Africa that were taken away from their homes and had a gun put in their hand at 6 and then like had to kill their brother. Like, there's some crazy shit out there. They can see a depth I could never dream of. But in America, in a first world country, like, I should be able to watch a Netflix show without flinching. This one tops my limit. So I ended up making it over the course of like, I want to say like 3 months. I ended up making it through episode 4. And I don't know exactly how many episodes there are, but I couldn't, like, I just stopped, basically. I was like, I've heard enough. I can't get to that depth that you're feeling, but it's making me feel like I can't handle anymore. And that sucks, that's sad, but it also helped me recognize how a lot of people might not be able to handle the depth that I try to show them. Like, Making of a Murderer is easy for me to get past. Like, easy.
I don't understand. Maybe I haven't really seen or figured out how deep some people can go.
I don't think you have, probably. But you had a different life.
I did.
To me, from my perspective, I think you had a relatively positive upbringing, childhood, family environment. You have almost no abuse, right? Almost no, like, you didn't have to grow up on the street or poor. You didn't have to grow up in a gang.
My mom, bless her heart, she's raised me as a single mom. And most of the time we were bouncing from like place to place because...
But you had a place.
Yeah, at the end of the day, I had a place. Luckily, I had an amazing second family that would house us. But if it weren't for them, like her dad, when she was pregnant with me, kicked her out.
Yeah.
But luckily, my second family was there. Oh, you need a house. Here you go.
Right.
So I got lucky in that aspect. I got lucky. I had a second family to fall back on. But a lot of people don't have that, you know.
A lot of people don't.
Same situation.
I didn't.
Like the lady I was talking to in Tennessee, Antoinette. There's like, she has no one to fall back on. She's a mother of 6 on her own, on the streets, living, fucking selling newspapers given to you by a church.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's fucking tough. I'm happy I didn't have to go through that. So, upbringing is a big thing.
But no, I mean, at the same time, man, like, if you survive, I don't know what I would be right now if I hadn't gone through the shit that I went through. I'm very, very proud to have come out of that without being a rapist or a serial killer, or even like worse, or even slightly better than that, and just have like a severe anger issue, which I did as a kid. Like, I was such a victim and so angry about everything. I'm like, if you can overcome the things in your life that would be considered like negative or fucked up or difficult, you can make it to, like, you can make yourself into a new person. You can be something different. Like, you can, and then hopefully through that you can be more empathetic and more, and teach other people that are, like, be there to inspire others that are having trouble. Like, that's really, I think, what it's ultimately about, is like, I can write shit now that I wouldn't have been able to, like, I can be in, like, I can express myself through art and in ways now that I would not have been able to express myself or even understand from other people had I not gone through some of that stuff. And so I'm actually, like, proud of that shit. But I also feel like it's just as possible or even probable that if we were doing kind of what we were talking about earlier, where the parents are teaching their kids to experiment with shit, and everything's kind of just paid for by the government, school-wise and shit, that you could have a lot of those same experiences going through difficulties without having to make them like life-threatening difficulties. And so I think you could achieve the same thing with much less risky, severe results. Or, much less risky, severe experiences.
Yeah. So, it all starts with, I believe, Nah, you know what? It's a system. It's a system that's in.
We are the system.
We are the system.
The thing is, it's my responsibility. It's your responsibility. It's their responsibility. Like it's not the not the congressman's responsibility.
You can't blame the system.
It's not the president's responsibility. It's not the banker's responsibility. We are the ones that provide them power, and then we're the ones that don't take it away when they take advantage of it. When they misuse that power, it's our responsibility to take that away from them and put someone else in place that won't misuse it. And if they misuse it, we do it again and again until someone doesn't misuse it. And that's our responsibility, but we don't do that. So it's not society. We are society. It's us. Like we're the ones that are responsible, and we're not taking responsibility for that. The best thing I've discovered that I personally can do without, and again, this is all just theoretical. Theoretically speaking, I could go crazy and do some shit like some people have done. I don't want to do that. I don't think that's a good option. I don't think that's like a way to make positive change. I think that's only going to push people in a more frightened direction, and that's not what we need. What I can do without the group ready to do that, at least, is I can do shit like be creative, artistically expressionate. So I can write poetry and music and songs, and I can do podcasts talking about this kind of shit. I can have conversations with people one-on-one. I talk about this shit at work all the time. And you should never, everyone will tell you, like, you really shouldn't talk about politics and religion and all this shit and like conspiracy theories at work. I've never not done that. I'm like, we should all be talking about all of this stuff all the time. This is what matters. This is what's important. We need free fucking healthcare, or universal healthcare, free education, and a universal base income. We need those things immediately for our society to become better. Where otherwise we're just going to continue stuck and stupid. And we need to be talking about it. We need to have open dialogue about it. It doesn't need to be a fight. It doesn't need to be fucking this like thing of like, oh, I can't believe he said that, commie fucking asshole. Like, dude, calm down, man. I'm just saying to you what I believe. You're welcome to say what you believe, and it doesn't have to be the same thing. But how about we focus on what's most important, which is what are we doing in our society? Who gives a shit if you're gay or straight or black or white? None of that actually matters. That's all just face value shallow shit. What matters is, are we making sure that our police officers aren't fucking killing people that don't need to be killed? And they're not just killing black people. While yes, the statistics may show that they're killing more black people, the issue isn't a race war.
It isn't.
I'm white and I don't give a shit what color you are. What I'm telling you is that the issue is that police are given too much goddamn power, and we the people aren't removing that power. The issue is not going to resolve itself if you try and deal with the symptom. The symptom is that police are shooting people. The issue is that we're not taking away their power to do that. There's a
not
huge
even
difference.
Necessarily taking away the power, but teaching them to use power in a right way.
I think they all should have minimum 2 years of law education.
Absolutely.
Because I have seen countless videos and talked to numerous cops about law, and they don't know it. So how can you expect someone to enforce the law without knowing the law? It doesn't make sense. So I agree with you about education, but at the same time, even educated people may still take advantage of the power given to them. And if so, it then becomes the responsibility of the people to take away that power. And that's the same thing with our Congress and our Senate and our presidents and our bankers and our anything you could think of, our corporate everything. It's our responsibility. If Johnson & Johnson is doing what they're doing, they can't keep doing that if everyone stops buying their products. Simple as that. So it's my responsibility. That's why I said that. When we found out that Johnson & Johnson was a pharmaceutical company and they were making all of this shit, I said, I will never buy another product that I saw on that list. And I won't. Because I'm taking the responsibility to say, I'm going to determine for myself that I don't want to support what that company is doing, which is basically lying. Because I didn't know half of that shit was Johnson & Johnson.
Benadryl, I'm pretty sure there's another name on it.
There's another name on it.
Neutrogena, maybe, but I'm pretty sure, or not Neutrogena, the Neosporin.
Neosporin has a different
name. Johnson?
Yeah, no, but it's
sure.
like, it's way at the very
print.
bottom in the fine print.
It's on the fold at the end of the tubing that you can't see.
Yeah.
It's hiding their names and telling lies.
Right.
Telling lies.
And I'm not one of those people
the truth.
saying we shouldn't have capitalism and we shouldn't have corporations. I'm also not saying we shouldn't have government. What I'm saying is we need the right kind of government and the right kind of corporations. Because right now we have neither. Right now we have the wrong kind of government and the wrong kind of corporations. If a government decides that weed, for instance, is illegal, and you can be put away in jail for 10 years for having a half a fucking goddamn joint, that is the wrong type of government. Simple as that. But we're letting them do that. If a government can say the Patriot Act is an acceptable form of fucking amendment to put on the Bill of Rights, that's the wrong form of government and we need to take responsibility for that, but we're not. And that's the issue, is that we aren't taking responsibility. The issue is that our priority system is fucked up, and the issue is that too goddamn many of us are uneducated and listening to bullshit about how the real problem is a race issue, and the real problem is whether or not you're gay or straight. Neither of those things are the issues. Those are symptoms of the problem. And that's where I'm at with it, is trying to tell people, like, hey man, like, illuminate yourself and educate yourself, because the real problem has nothing to do with what the color of your skin is. The real problem has nothing to do with whether you're from that side of the border or this side of the border. The real problem is we're not together telling our government and corporations what they need to do. And they're not going to do it the way we want them to until we tell them to.
It's time for a riot.
It's been way past that time. What's crazy to me is other fucking cultures, other societies do it all the time.
Societies that have based themselves off of what we originally started, too. Well, not completely, but like taking bits and pieces from all over, like what we should be doing, what we did.
No, not that I want to be France exactly, but France, for instance, has like regular fucking like riots and people like out on the street amassing to go, no, we're not letting you do this. And then their politicians, because their people, get up in front of their shit and like, we're going to starve you into this building and you're either going to die or you're going to come out. That's what's going to happen. Like, either you're going to starve to death in there or you're going to come out so that we can put someone else in there to do your job because you're not doing it the way we want to. And they always come out.
Yeah.
No one's just going to let themselves starve to death. So, like, I mean, we need to do shit like that.
And
like, we need to get extreme, dude.
Yeah.
Like, get extreme because they're extreme.
The only way to fix it is to
break it.
There you go.